taking care of business and commitments. I want to focus more on doing some more practice in the second half. We did a lot of talking. I want to introduce a quick practice. We were meditating with sound. Hold on. Here they are. No, glasses. And one or two people were asking during the break about meditating with different sounds and meditating with different mantras. So what we used as the kind of on-ramp that time was the sound ah. I like that one for a number of reasons, mainly because I like it. It just feels good. It's a sound of openness. It is not limited to any particular one culture. That is a word that has the same meaning in every language. And the meaning is, ah. It signifies, in a very visceral way, right? A very real somatic, physical way, it signifies and expresses and feels like openness, release, satisfaction, happiness, fulfillment. You know, when someone's been puzzled about something, you're trying to work the crossword puzzle, and you get, oh, what number 17 across is, you go, ah. When you have an orgasm, you go, ah. Right? All of the above. It doesn't matter how you got there, but you get to ah, and we all understand that intuitively. What we are told by the great enlightened sages, the Buddhas, the Christs, is that there is an inner awe that never ends. That it doesn't have to depend on getting the external circumstances lined up just right. Because all those external circumstances are constantly shifting, constantly changing. Our control over them is very, very limited. And if you can find that inner awe and tap into it, and eventually get to the place where you don't have to tap into it anymore. What happens is, this is the really good news. Every time you tap into it, it's like dipping your toe into the water, or your foot, or your leg, or two legs. You come out wet. So after meditate, one or two people during the break were saying to me, oh, that was the nicest meditation I've ever had, which I always love to hear. And I can sense it in the room afterward. You're still wet for a little while. And there's a feeling of, oh yeah, things are kind of nice, mellow, relaxed. Everything feels lovely for no particular reason. Everything feels lovely in some way that doesn't depend on anything external. And then it wears off, then you lose it. And, you know, whatever, the next thing, someone cuts you off in traffic, and whatever. But that's okay. And the way this is explained traditionally in India is they say it's like the old-fashioned method of dyeing cloth. You take the white cloth, you dip it into the vat of blue dye, and it comes out and it's bright blue, and then you put it out on a flat rock in the sun to dry and fade. The bright sun fades out most of that blue color, and you might think, oh, that's tragic. That beautiful blue color has been faded away. But what that's doing is it's making the bit that remains color fast, permanent. So then you dip it again, fade it again, and a little more remains. Dip it again, fade it again, a little more remains. Eventually, the whole thing is permanent, bright blue. So this is what we're doing by meditating and then coming out. If people were just sitting in caves meditating all the time, I wouldn't be going around teaching meditation. I'd be teaching people to come out. Because the fading is just as important as the dipping. That stabilizes the connection with that awe, with that kingdom of heaven, right? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's what that means, to me anyway. It means that heaven, where's heaven? Within you. And you find that awe within yourself, and then you come out and it's all this junk and chatter and office and subway and all that. But more and more, that quality, that what the Buddhists call the one taste, that one taste of awe, that thread, that flavor that is found to run through everything. And it's not really that you bring it out. It's that you find more and more that it was there all along. Because God don't make no junk. Because nothing is a mistake. Because nothing is not sacred. Nothing, no part of the finite is not the infinite. Right? If I say to you, the infinite is everywhere, pervades the whole universe, except for this one little tiny point on at the end of my glasses here. Is that possible? No, because then by definition, it's not infinite. Therefore, it must be everywhere. Therefore, we can find it within ourselves, and that's where we start, because that's the easiest place to find it, because we live here. And then more and more, we recognize it everywhere else. We recognize that that's what everything was all along, that it was all the glory of the infinite. It's all the glory of God. And every religion, in its best part, in its current, there's a lot of other cultural baggage that generally gets added on, and cultural biases get enshrined in the religions, and those are problems, and then we have wars over them and oppress various groups with them and so forth. But every religion, every philosophy, they've got the kernel where they recognize that. The infinite is infinite perfection. It's everywhere. It's inherent in human awareness to be able to recognize that. And don't we all feel that I'm supposed to be living that? That it's my birthright, that if I'm not feeling that all the time, I'm still dissatisfied. Something's wrong. So the good news is, that's there. That's available. You can find it. So this time, that to me, that word kind of indicates all of that. But you can use other sounds. You can use a very popular one that I'm sure you're all familiar with is Om. And I talk in the book about that, and the fact that even though it's so well known, most people mispronounce it. There's a subtle adjustment of the pronunciation. I don't want to go into that now, but it's in the book that makes it actually much more effective. If it's good to pronounce it right, not so you get an A in your Sanskrit class, but so that it resonates in a deeper way in your nervous system. Now, here's another thing from that same chapter, Meditating on Sound. Years ago, I was on a plane from Texas to New Jersey, coming home from a retreat with my friend Jody. I'd been going through some intense emotional turbulence, and she gave me a teaching that's one of the most profound I've ever received. Dean, she said, just remember this. No matter what's happening, as long as you say, "Wee!" you can't have a bad time. Try it. Seriously. It may be all the mantra you'll ever need. So, ready? 1, 2, 3. Wee! Now, try to feel depressed. Can't do it. Can't do it. Wee! No, I'm serious. By the way, Yatha and I, that is one of the major mantras of our whole marriage. We use that one a lot. A lot. It's really recommended in marriage. It's terrific. Wee! But there's something, as an English teacher who taught a lot about poetry, and poetry is all about the power of different sounds to evoke. The choosing the sound that has the right word to evoke certain feelings. They reverberate in the nervous system in different ways. There's a reason why Edgar Allan Poe wrote about the fall of the House of Usher. Right? Not the house of wee. It wouldn't work. Okay, let's do some more practice. So please sit comfortably. And this time, I'd like to invite you to look to your left and notice. Oh, you're aware of certain things. You're aware of certain colors, certain shapes. That you have certain thoughts that tell you that they're this object or that object. Okay, colors, shapes, thoughts. Now we turn our head to the right and see what you're aware of there. Different colors, shapes, different names for those objects, which are thoughts. Okay, and bring your head to the front. And now in the front, you're aware of other stuff. Different colors, shapes, thoughts, forms. So, different experience, different experience, different experience. Aware of this one, aware of this one, aware of this one. But what remains the same? What remains the same? Yeah, the I, the one who is aware. The awareness, we could say. Let's try something else. Try scrunch up your shoulders in an uncomfortable, awkward position. Now we're aware of those sensations. Now drop them into a relaxed position. Now we're aware of those sensations. But what remains the same? The awareness, the experiencer. We could say I, but when we say I, we don't mean the body, because the body's changing. The body's changing the way the shoulders are, the way the head is. Also, the body I look down and see now is not the same one I saw when I was 7 years old. It's a totally different body. And yet, isn't there a sense of it's the same I that experienced it? The same I that was watching this little excited 7-year-old body blow out the candles on the birthday cake, and the same I that watched the person that I was in college exploring different identities. Oh, maybe I'll be a melancholy poet. Maybe I'll be a joyous hippie. Maybe I'll be, whatever. Of course, I'm not really going to be any of those. I'm going to be the I that is trying out all those identities. This silent witness, this awareness that's aware of all the changing stuff. Okay, is everyone kind of on board? Okay, so let's just close the eyes. Let's take a slow, deep breath. And let the breath out. And one more. And breathe out. And now forget about the breath. Just leave it however it is. Just leave everything however it is. I'm going to say a few things, but they won't be giving you anything to do. Just pointing out how things already are. We can notice how sounds arise and then go away. Sound of this voice. Occasional cars in the distance. The buzzing of the air conditioning, fan, whatever that is. And notice it arises and changes, goes away, remains the same, all by itself. We're not in control. And just like the sounds, also feelings can arise, change, pass away. Feelings of relaxation, anxiety, anger, fear, whatever. And notice that those feelings feel certain ways. They're sensations. They arise in their own time, pass away in their own time. So we're aware of the passing sounds. We're aware of the passing feelings. We're aware of passing thoughts, which also arise and pass away in their same time. In their own time, in the same way. We're aware of all this stuff that comes and goes. The one thing that does not come and go is the awareness itself. The experiencer, the I, which is not the body. It's not anything we have to imagine. It's what we are right now. It's just this conscious open space within which all the other experiences come and go. Just like space, within which the planets and the galaxies come and go on their own. So just remain as you are. Remain like open space. This natural, regular, ordinary awareness, which is not the body or any other thing. It just is. And to remain what you already are, there's nothing to do. Not trying to focus or concentrate on anything. Not trying to feel any particular way. Not trying to get rid of anything or hold on to anything. That's all way too complicated. Just remaining as you already are. This natural openness, this natural awareness, this natural beingness, which is like sky, like space, which has room for everything, which is not affected by anything, because nothing leaves footprints in this space. Nothing dents the space. So just rest as this awareness. Just let go into it. Just give up into it. Sometimes you may realize that you've been caught up in some long train of thoughts, and that's fine too. When you realize it, you're no longer caught up in it. You're already off that train. So there's nothing to do about it. There's nowhere to get back to. That's all been happening right here within this space-like awareness. Where else could it be? Nothing to do. Nothing to figure out. No goal to achieve. No strategy for achieving it. We're always already right here. Awareness. Being. I. Just resting as that. Giving up into that. And whatever else is there along with it is fine. Now take a few minutes and slowly start to rouse the body back into a more active state. Take your time. When you feel ready, slowly start to crack the eyes open, but take all the time you need. Okay. Any questions or observations? Yes. Do we have the mic? The house mic? Oh, there it is. There it is.
Thank you. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you. When I meditate and I'm quiet, I can see purple.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing it today. But I've done something today I've never done before. And I guess it's okay to say this. The body seems to have irritable bowel syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had this, and it's challenging. Every time we meditated, if I go to sleep, your neck goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Mine does anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But when I meditate this time, the whole body was going down.
Mm-hmm.
I bring it back, be quiet, and then not that I'm doing it, it just does it. And I was thinking, is that saying something down here?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing that. A couple of things. You raised a couple of very good points. First, and I love the way you said that. I'm not doing it. I'm not trying to do. And in fact, if we had someone mentioned earlier, Daniel Siegel or the people doing if we had the scientists here and they had you hooked up with the EEG lead and the GSR, all these things, they would be able to report, okay, you had these changes in your blood chemistry and these changes in your brain waves and so forth. If someone told you, okay, we want you to change your blood chemistry, you wouldn't know how to start. Mother Nature's doing it, is what I keep saying. And our entire job is to just cooperate, just get out of the way, just let it happen. And now sometimes this may be manifested in something like that. Just, the body's so deeply relaxed, so deeply settled. It might have something to do with what's going on in the bowel area. It might not. We don't need to know. That's what's so great. We're not driving. Willie Nelson, the great country singer, Willie Nelson once said, fortunately, we're not in control. Right? Fortunately, we're not in control. Now, I will tell you that most doctors will tell you that many, many, many ailments have a stress component. And meditation, and much more deeply natural meditation, when we let nature do it, because nature is so much more powerful than we are, natural meditation, by deeply allowing stress to dissolve, my guess is what's going on when you're doing there is not necessarily so much specific to the bowel area. It's just like, oh, the whole system, something much more profound than even what you're asking about. The whole system is getting deeply settled. And that gives a chance for all kinds of things to tend to become healed. My late first wife, Maggie, she was a very serious, I don't want to use the word serious, very not like solemn, but very solid meditation practitioner and teacher. And when she developed cancer, she and went through she was going through chemotherapy and all that. And everyone in the oncologist's office was so impressed with how wonderfully she was able to deal with things. Ultimately, she died of cancer. Ultimately, we all got to die of something. And she died of cancer. But it's, on the way there, how are we handling things? How are we with things? And she was able to be with that as much as can be, with such peace and such dignity and such grace, that they brought her back to teach meditation to the whole oncology staff. Yeah. And, so we all have to go through, we all have to die of something. And, that's kind of the final exam. And she got an A. I mean, of course, I had to go through some, I got maybe a B+, right? But I'm still learning. God is not finished with me, as they say. Yeah. Which brings us to your question that you started to ask me during the break.
A long time ago, I think, and
There
I
we go.
don't remember the source,
Mm-hmm.
that those of us who meditate, when it comes our time to transition,
Mhm.
and we do die, that those of us who have been meditating all of our lives, or much of our lives, find it easier during that transition to go into the next life. First of all, what's your take on it? And second, how do people know if that really is true, if it does?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't get to come back and
Yeah,
tell us
right,
too much.
right,
Okay,
right.
but that's
Yeah. Meditation makes everything easier. And dying comes under the category of everything. The thing is, meditating, and as you continue to practice and really get deep into your practice, you'll, if you haven't seen it yet, I think you'll come to see the reality of what I'm about to say. Meditating is a whole lot like dying. And I hope that doesn't sound scary, because it's exactly the opposite. It's very, very beautiful. Because what happens, well, okay, just let's talk a little bit, let's come back to this question. I want to talk a little bit about the meditation we just did. Any comments or observations specifically on that, and then we'll connect back to what you're asking. Yes.
relaxed or whatever, my eyelids start going. I don't know if I'm just starting to fall asleep or it's part of the meditation process.
Mm-hmm. The eyelids start to flutter?
Yeah, they just kind of go on their own.
Yeah, that
like
happens.
They're relaxing or something.
Yeah, and that's part of that unwinding of the rubber band that I was
Okay.
talking about earlier. It can express in so many different ways, and forget about it. And just know that it's fine. Nothing.
I just
nothing
didn't know
to
if it
worry
was an indicator I was just falling asleep.
about. It might be, it might not be, doesn't matter. Mother Nature's driving. But it's good to ask this stuff so we can then check the box and forget about it. Okay? Yes, over. Yeah.
What is the purpose of keeping our eyes closed? I want to open mine right away.
Mhm.
and it's very difficult.
Oh, at the end, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, good, good. Thanks for reminding me about that. The reason I emphasize coming out slow, and I don't like to say coming out, bringing the body to a more active state, because I'm against coming out. And because I don't want to reinforce the idea that there's an in and an out. What we're doing is, as I was saying before, recognizing that which is the essence of reality everywhere, whether it's during so-called meditation or so-called life. But the reason I emphasize rousing the body slowly is that during meditation, the body physiologically tends to get deeply, deeply, deeply settled. We may notice that as you were saying, the body slumping forward. Most of the time, not necessarily. Often, we don't subjectively realize how deeply the body is objectively settled. And I found this out from a friend of mine, Dr. Keith Wallace, who was involved in some of the earliest pioneering research on the subject. He co-authored a study that was in Scientific American in 1970 or 1971, one of the very first studies that showed that when people meditate, the oxygen consumption goes way down, the EEG changes, all this stuff changes. Being a meditator himself, at the end of each, just out of curiosity, as he was taking the EEG leads off the scalp of each subject, he would often ask them, what was that meditation like? And sometimes they would say, oh, it was so deeply settled. It was great. And sometimes they would say, oh, it was really choppy. I was just having a lot of thoughts. I felt distracted. Don't count that one in your averages. It'll throw things off. What he found was that, generally speaking, in both cases, there was about the same amount of physiological settling down taking place. You get how significant it is to know that? Because it means you can totally forget about all that worrying or being concerned. Am I having a good meditation? Am I having a bad? Is it working? Forget about it. Forget about it. Okay? Now, what does that have to do with this? Because the body is deeply settled into the state, and actually I've got a whole chapter on states of consciousness in the book. We're actually in a fourth state of consciousness, which I don't have time to talk about. Anytime we transition from one state to another, we want to take, like when you start to wake up in the morning, when you have the first glimmers of wakefulness, if you quick jumped out of bed and planted your feet on the floor, you'd probably get a massive headache and fall over and break your nose or something. Okay? So we always take your time coming out. And I know people who've experienced that, coming out of meditation too quickly and actually getting a headache or feeling kind of spacey and disoriented, something like that. So always better to take your time, take a couple of minutes. And during that time, you can squeeze your hands, stretch. I used to say rub your face till Yafa explained to me that women will never rub their faces because it'll smear their makeup. Now, in this particular meditation, you notice we've had meditation with the on-ramp of awe. In the book, I also explore and walk you through meditating where the on-ramp, the vehicle, is resting the attention on the heart center. You'll all be able to very easily do any of these now because the principle is the same. Just lightly, effortlessly resting the attention on the heart center. The breath, the open sky, that's another technique, another chapter. All of that, you're all experts now. And it's just a matter of test driving these different vehicles and find out which ones really you feel most comfortable in. The steering wheel feels good in my hand, and not the steering wheel. You're in the passenger seat, right? Okay, but this upholstery feels comfy under my butt, whatever it is. This particular meditation that we just did is basically meditation with no vehicle, right? We were not meditating on a sound or the heart center or the breath. We were just not resting the awareness on anything else, just resting the awareness in the awareness. Right? First we notice that, okay, I can look to the left, look to the right, look to the front. I'm aware of different things. I can hear different, be aware of different sounds, aware of different feelings with my shoulders or anywhere else. All that changes. The awareness itself remains the same. It's like open space. Everything else comes and goes within it. It's the one constant. It's the one thing when they lock you up in solitary confinement that they can't take away from you. And once it's been pointed out to you, you can just rest your awareness in that and notice that everything comes and goes within it frictionlessly. Nothing leaves footprints in the sky. It doesn't matter what thoughts come and go. It doesn't matter what feelings you feel. You feel feelings of anger, happiness. What else did we have? Anxiety, fear. Do you hear how subversive those words are? How many people in this world will tell you it doesn't matter what you feel? Right? It doesn't matter whether you have feelings of anxiety or feelings of happiness. Right? Our whole lives are about trying to organize circumstances so that they're giving us feelings of happiness and not giving us feelings of anxiety. And then our whole lives become a process of discovering how difficult it is to keep arranging things. What if we could discover that on some profound level, it doesn't matter what feelings come and go? All right? We say, I am happy. Then we say, I am grumpy. That's not true. I am this, I am that. No, you're not. I feel happy right now. I feel grumpy right now. I feel sleepy right now. But you're not happy, you're not grumpy, you're not sleepy. You're Snow White. You are the Snow White, pristine, unchanged, unchanging, unchangeable awareness, self. I, which is not the body, not the mind, not anything else, which is the experiencer of all those experiences. And those experiences include the passing feelings. By the way, you just got the summary of chapter 1 of my book, Cinema Nirvana, where I take movies that I do a whole chapter on Snow White, and there's one on Jaws and one on The Godfather. All these movies where people told me, there's no spirituality in that. You just wait. So this is another way to practice. By the way, this is for me my main practice these days. This happens to be what calls me, but that doesn't mean that should be the main practice for you. If it calls you, if you feel, oh yeah, that's the upholstery I feel good with, and it can change over time. For a lot of people, it's more. It just works. Things work better to have something with an object for at least a while. A lot of people will find that meditating on the heart center, resting the awareness here, is really nice. That really just lends itself. For a while. Again, all these things are provisional. They're all like the raft. They're all like the raft. The last chapter of this book is titled The Door is Everywhere. After a while, actually, how am I doing for time? Oh, okay, I'm not going to read this to you. I want to do one more practice before we go. We got a couple of minutes. Yes. Oh, yes. I didn't finish my answer responding to your question. Thank you. So, I can't tell you what happens when you die, because you don't die. The body dies. The body dies. I can tell you that people who have become familiar, deeply familiar with who they really are, which is not the body, not the 7-year-old body, not the 70-year-old body, not the 7 or 70-year-old mind or attitude, but the timeless, bodiless experiencer of all those changing bodies and so forth that we erroneously call me. People like Christ and the Buddha and Socrates and Lao Tzu and the Baal Shem Tov, don't seem very worried about death. Right? Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that without even reading one page of Buddhism 101 or Taoism 101 or the dialogues of Socrates, we just kind of know that those folks aren't worried about death? You know, when Jesus is on the cross, what does he say? Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. He's not saying, this really hurts. It does hurt. Nails through your wrists hurt. But there's a saying, pain is mandatory, suffering is optional. Okay? The fact that we're sort of kind of, we have this relationship with this physical organism. We're sort of, it's not us, but we're sort of residing in it, sort of. Means that it's subject to physical pain. That's the way it is. But even in the law, when you get hit by a car, you sue for pain and suffering because they're two different things. Pain is mandatory. Suffering is optional because pain comes from the outside world. Suffering is something that we choose to generate by fixating on stuff, as we were saying before, right? The pain is that moment that the kid gets the vaccination. And by the way, what percentage of the kid's skin surface area is actually pained by the needle? Right? A fraction. And yet, what does the kid do? Isn't that weird? Isn't that perverse? Here's 99.999% of your body feels fine, and what do? You squeeze your whole attention into that one tiny part where the pain is. That's how you call. So of course it hurts. Of course there's pain, but you're making the suffering by doing that. And once you've seen with some clarity how you generate suffering, you can start choosing to not do it anymore. You can start letting it go. You can start letting it go. Okay? And that's why Jesus can say, forgive them. He's concerned with the people on the ground. They're not being crucified, but they're suffering. He's being crucified, but he's not suffering because he knows what he is. He's not this. He's not being crucified. The body is being crucified. Okay? The body gets cancer. The body dies. Through meditative practice, actually I can tell you what happens when you die, when your body dies. Because as St. Paul says, I die daily. Right? I die daily. It's called meditation. Okay? What happens is my whatever identity, whatever activity of identifying with a body, a personality, anything individual, a separate self, whatever identifying there is with a so-called separate self is still going on, drops off, it dissolves. That's what really happens in meditation. That's what I was pointing out in that meditation just now. We're not a body, we're open space. We're conscious space called awareness. Does that space, does that awareness, that formless awareness, does it have an edge? Can it have an edge? Anything we're aware of that's an edge is an object, is an experience within it, within this awareness, within this experiencer. Can it have a color? Like you mentioned, sometimes experiencing purple in your meditation. Fine, you might experience purple, red, green, blue, or none of the above. That's fine, and it doesn't matter because it's an experience. And the one thing, for people who have things like that, I have a lot of this color or a lot of this, sometimes people experience subtle, even like celestial textures or aromas or flavors even. If stuff like that happens, great. Don't attach to it. Don't identify that as having something as the sign of a successful or good meditation. Don't be distracted. And all the great teachers say that. These things, don't let them distract you because they're just experiences. Experiences are not important. What's important is that you are the experiencer because those things are boundless, are bounded. You are boundless. Purple is one wavelength, one frequency of light. That's all. What you are is something much bigger than that, infinite, has no wavelength, has no color. Okay? You see it? And even, we don't have to meditate to see that even, so-called meditate. We can look, okay, here's a book, and here's this thing, and we're experiencing light blue. And then over here, so we're aware of the blue. Now here's the purple flower. We're aware of the purple. Is awareness blue, or is it purple? Or neither? If awareness were purple, we couldn't see blue. Awareness must be colorless. We can be aware of the rectangular and aware of the whatever, the round. Is awareness rectangular or round? No, it has no shape. And what is this aware? We're talking about it as if it's an object separate from us, but it is us. It's the experiencer. So what we are has no color. It has no shape. And now it's easy. We can go more quickly now. It has no gender. You are not male. You are not female. You are not American or Iranian or Mexican. You are not old or young. You are not human or animal or vegetable or mineral. You are not in the past or the future or even the present. You are isness. Before, like a screen, like a blank movie screen, only with no edges, no boundaries, on which this movie comes and goes. And tragic stuff happens, and hilarious stuff happens. But you know what? When there's a big fire in the movie, the screen doesn't catch fire. When there's a flood in the movie, the screen doesn't get wet. The screen has infinite capacity for all this stuff to happen and never be touched by it. What happens is, and this is a key word, identification. We identify with some character in the movie. We think we're Bruce Willis, or we think we're, whoever. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of this whole process that has to happen for a while. Because what happens, and you experience this all the time when you go to movies. That's why they turn the lights down in the movies, so it'll be brighter on the screen, but also so you stop seeing this body that you usually identify with and forget about it, which you associate with, I just got my taxes filed and blah, blah, blah. And instead you identify with Bruce Willis or Scarlett Johansson and his or her adventures. So when Scarlett's in danger, you feel tension. When she triumphs, you feel, yay, you feel happy. How could you possibly have these emotions stimulated by the fictitious adventures of a two-dimensional representation of a non-existent character on a screen? Through the magic of identification. Okay? Now, welcome to the movie of so-called life. Okay? Where you have identified as Heather or Dean or Darren. Okay? And so when things are going well for Darren, oh man, it's great. And when things are going badly for Darren, oh man, right? Now guess what? In this theater, every movie ends the same way. Spoiler alert. At the end, the character dies. When you think you're the character, that's horrible. Annihilation. We all have this intuition that that can't be right. That can't be the way life is arranged. And so we intuit that there must be something more, some better resolution. And in the different cultures, it's expressed in things like, a heaven that you go to, or you reincarnate, or something like that. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I don't know the mechanics of it exactly. Maybe you come back as another character. But you know what? You were never this character, and you're not going to be that character either. Maybe you'll identify as another character and maybe you'll identify as a series of characters until you figure it out. And I don't mean figure it out intellectually, till you get it experientially. I'm not any of these characters. I'm the screen. And the screen is boundless beingness, awareness, bliss. That's why it's called the kingdom of heaven. And the heaven is not a place you go to after you die. You may have heard that in some Sunday school here or there, but you didn't hear that from Jesus. He said the kingdom of heaven is within you. He said if it's in the sky, the birds will be there before you are. Little gospel stand-up comedy. So what happens when you die? You don't. What happens when the body dies? Is it easier for meditators? Yes, because you've gone through the fire drill every day. The fire drill is just let everything go. Right? What did you hear me say so many times in these meditations? Just let go into it. Let go into this awareness. Let go into this I, this boundlessness, which is not the body. And everyone with some greater or lesser degree of clarity, I know everyone in this room got some taste of that, some recognition of that. And what I really recommend is sit down, even if it's for 1 minute every day, even if it's just at a red light when you're sitting there trying to make the red light turn green and you realize, no, that doesn't work. Just let go. Let awareness settle back into awareness. And it's really good also to have formal sessions. I don't mean formal like solemn. I just mean that it's good maybe to have the same time every day. So like brushing your teeth, it becomes a habit, part of your schedule. And you sit and just, maybe you use an on-ramp like a mantra or the heart center or something for a while. After a while, it's just awareness, resting in awareness. Letting go into awareness, melting into what you already are. Sky-like, space-like awareness, within which things come and go. And those instructions for meditation are also the instructions for dying. Exactly the same instructions. And there's all these books like the Tibetan book of the dead and so forth. And they use a lot of fancy medieval language, but this is what it comes down to. It's exactly the same instruction. And it's really, really good, just in case you have to die someday. You never know. Just in case you have to die someday, it's really good to have done the fire drill before the fire. I've had the privilege of being around a few people when they're dying. And I mean privilege. That is an incredible time. It's a time of truth. And it's a time when a lot of people, there's a tendency to panic. Oh no, I'm in a burning building. But you're in it. You're not it. You're not even in it. You're not even in it. It is in you. The sense of having a body, there's just some more sensations that we experience within this sky-like awareness. And the more you practice this, the more you'll see that. The awareness is not in the body. The body is just some more sensations within the awareness. What happens when, quote unquote, you die? Those sensations go away. Nothing happens to you. Nothing happens to what you are. Okay? Thank you so much for spending the day with me. Thanks. I want to really, really thank Reverend Heather, everyone who helped bring me here today. Thank all of you for being here. Please, my website's on the back cover of all the books. Come visit my website. You can read chapters from all my books and see cartoons and videos and also my schedule of events. And if you've got friends in Chicago or Kansas City, wherever, tell them to come see me. If you read one of my books or more of them and you feel so moved, please share the word by A, telling your friends, and B, writing a little customer review for Amazon. Okay, that's very, very helpful in getting the word out. And if any of you who are connected with other groups, I'm starting to talk to some corporations, anywhere. If you build it, I will come. Okay. As long as you need me here. Okay, good. Hey, yeah, they're great. Oh, thank you.